Known as one of the three fundamental playwrights of Greek tragedy, Sophocles boasts a legacy still alive today. Little is known about his early life, but in later life he served in the Athenian government and even as a general. Educated in music and the arts, he became famous as a playwright with an estimated 120 plays accredited to his name. His surviving plays are all tragedies based on myth, with an emphasis on human character, flaws, and the overarching dominance of fate. The cultural impact of Sophocles and Greek theater reaches far beyond the ancient world. They provide insights on ancient Greece, mythology, and their view of morality. As the art of theater spread, themes and ideas from Sophocles and others provided the basis for Western theater, an art form which is still acclaimed and thriving today. Sophocles is believed to have lived from 496 to 406 BC, bridging the time between the Archaic and Classical periods. Although there is no actual record of his birth and death, these dates are inferred from what is known of his childhood and the testimony of his fellow playwrights at his death. Born in the small polis of Colonus, farther inland than Athens, Sophocles is believed to have been born into a wealthy family. His father Sophocles likely operated or owned a successful trade. In his lifetime, Sophocles lived through both Peloponnesian Wars, the construction of the Parthenon, and lives alongside the famous philosophers Socrates and Plato. As a member of Athens, located in the south of Greece on the Aegean Sea, he would be influenced by a haven of culture, art, and philosophy. Athens was known in the wider region of Greece for its democracy, founded by Cleisthenes in 507 BC, and excellent naval presence in the northern Mediterranean. Their system of government and emphasis on the intellect provided the Western world with a legacy of thought, literature, and art. As a child, Sophocles was educated by the musician Lampris in not only music, but the art of dance. The first known record we have of Sophocles is that he was given the lead in a celebratory dance to mark the victory of the Greeks over the Persians in the Battle of Salamis in 480 BC. He was around 15 years old at the time. Choruses of young boys often performed under the direction of the state for celebrations and religious festivals, usually naked. This musical background no doubt contributed to his later fame as a playwright and competitor in the Athenian festivals. Aside from his renown as one of the great tragedy playwrights, Sophocles also lived out the Greek ideal of a patriotic man, serving the polis in many roles over his lifetime. He served as an Athenian treasurer between 443 and 442 BC, and also became a general at the age of 55. He is known to have worked alongside Pericles, an influential statesman and general during the Samian War. This conflict between Athens and Samos lasted between 440 and 439 BC and ended with the surrender of Samos after 9 months of siege. Sophocles also served in foreign embassies and was included in the council to discuss the lost expedition of Athens against Syracuse in 413. From the writings of other Greeks and the legacy he earned, Sophocles was known as a pleasant-tempered man. His dedication to Athens is also evident in his time serving the polis. He was married to Nicostrate and is believed to have had 3 sons, Sophocles, Eophon, and with his mistress Theoris, Ariston. As an old man, Sophocles was allegedly accused by his son Eophon of being senile. According to his biographer Saturnus, he replied to these accusations with the words, "If I am Sophocles, I am no dotard, and if I dote, I am not Sophocles." Whether or not this story is true, there's no doubt that the playwright was admired and respected by his colleagues, friends, and the people of Greece for most of his life. At his death, he was honored by the cult Alcon, and both Phrynichus and Aristophanes mention his death in their plays. The real legacy of Sophocles is not in his political achievements, but in his plays. Along with Aeschylus and Euripides, he is known as one of the 3 great writers of Greek tragedy. Of his 120 plays, only 7 of them survive. Fragments of others have been found, but unfortunately not completely preserved. Sophocles probably owes his surviving plays to the Greek education system, whose emphasis on music and the visual arts, especially in Athens, included many of their playwrights' classics. This was also probably how the plays were first written down. Greek theater was usually performed outside, and was an event accessible to all men and perhaps even women. Tragedies, the most common genre of play, likely arose in the natural progression from epics like Homer's The Iliad and Odyssey. Plays were usually based on Greek mythology, and so for the pious were also viewed as a religious celebration. Greek comedy was witty or crude, often reflecting on and critiquing the philosophies and political questions of the time. The most famous comedy playwrights are Aristophanes and Menander. Plays had an element of lyrical, usually performed by the chorus, a group performing the song, or occasionally lines, but not acting in the events of the play. Even in the tragedies, death or violence was not visible on stage. Instead, it is reported by the other characters. Sophocles' 7 intact plays are Antigone, estimated to be the earliest, Ajax, Electa, Oedipus at Colonus, Oedipus the King, Trachinian Women, and Philoctetes. Plays were usually completed in groups of 3 and presented with a shorter comedy play called a satyr at festivals. One of these, held in the Athenian city of Dionysia, hosted a competition in honor of the god Dionysus, with prizes for first and second place. It is likely through these festivals that Dionysus became associated with theater. In the course of his career, Sophocles won 20 awards from his first competition in 486 till his last in 406. With more victories than his contemporaries, Sophocles could be judged the most successful playwright of ancient Greece. Like other writers of his time, Sophocles probably acted in his plays, although he was rumored to cease because of his weak voice. He was still involved in the productions, however, reportedly playing the lyre to accompany one of his plays, the Thermesias, only fragments of which survive today. Music usually comprised about a quarter of each play, performed by the chorus, and Sophocles is credited with first using the Phrygian mode in his music. His innovation, too, changed the usual Greek chorus from outsiders to characters in some of his plays, drawing the audience into the action. Perhaps the most well-known of Sophocles' plays is the Oedipus cycle, 3 plays which were not written or performed at the same time, but which tell a story of Oedipus, a figure well known in Greek mythology at the time. These plays are Oedipus the King, or Oedipus Tyrannus, Oedipus at Colonus, and Antigone. In modern literature and theater, Oedipus the King is the most popular, although Antigone is also widely performed. Oedipus the King, or Oedipus Tyrannus in the Greek, and by the Roman name Oedipus Rex, is set in a rich mythological background that Sophocles' audience would have been familiar with. In the myth, Oedipus's parents, King Laius and Queen Jocasta, are informed that their child will kill his father and marry his mother. Horrified at the abomination foretold, they leave Oedipus chained to a mountainside as a baby, to face certain death before the prophecy can occur. Instead, the child is rescued by a passing shepherd and reared by the king and queen of Corinth, Polybus and Merope. As an adult, Oedipus hears of the prophecy, and to protect the king and queen, who he still believes are his birth parents, leaves Corinth for Thebes. On the road, he meets Laius, his birth father, who he does not remember. The two get in a heated quarrel, and Oedipus kills Laius. Unaware that Thebes was his original homeland, Oedipus arrives there to free the city from the Sphinx by answering her riddle. What uses 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the day, and 3 at night? The answer is, of course, a man, who crawls on his hands and knees as an infant, walks upright as a man, and leans on a staff in his old age. For defeating the Sphinx, Oedipus is given the throne of Thebes, lately left unoccupied by his dead father, who he killed. And with the throne, Queen Jocasta, his mother, as his wife. Here is where Sophocles picks up the tale, and the play actually begins. Because of the disgusting act Oedipus has unknowingly completed, the land of Thebes is cursed with a plague. Oedipus swears to find the one guilty of causing the plague, and exiling him, even when the blind prophet Tiresias tells him that he is the one responsible. Oedipus does not believe him.
Instead, he is sure the blind prophet is seeking to overthrow him. As the tensions throughout the play mount, a messenger arrives, bearing the news that Polybus, his father, has died, and also makes it clear that Polybus is not Oedipus's birth father. Jocasta, realizing what this means, that she has married her son and the murderer of her husband, runs away and hangs herself. When Oedipus discovers his mother, his wife, dead, he takes the golden pins of her dress and blinds himself with them, fleeing to exile from grief and shame.
This play exemplifies many of the themes Sophocles was known for. He often illustrates the downfall of pride and the overarching power of fate. Oedipus Tyrannus also plays with irony. As hard as Oedipus tries to escape the curse fate has destined him, the closer he comes to it. Every action he takes to save himself ultimately leads him one step closer to his own destruction. In the end, truth comes through tragedy. Sophocles masterfully shows the dynamic triumphs and failures of the human condition. Ignorance, pride, and overwhelming loyalty are all blended in his characters, who are, like real people, beset with flaws. He also dives deep into the questions of morality. What is right? What is wrong?
This excellence in deep character writing is summarized beautifully by Sophocles' biographer. Not only the utter devotion of Antigone, but the lacerated innocence of Oedipus and Deianira, the tempted truth of Neoptolemus, the essential nobility of Ajax, leave an impress on the heart which is ineffaceable, and must elevate and purify while it remains. Unlike other playwrights of his time, Sophocles had more freedom to explore characters. He was the first to use 3 actors instead of the customary 2, and he also employed the use of basic set pieces for the first time in Greek history. Drawing his plots from mythological tales meant that the audience was already aware of the story, and any emphasis or new way he portrayed characters would stand out.
Sophocles' plays have been generally admired throughout history. Criticisms have been made that he dealt too much in the human sphere of influence and neglected the higher religious and intellectual questions of life. Modern critics don't like his acceptance of the Greek gods or divine forces that uphold morality. His works were the subject of interest to many philosophers, including Virgil, and in Rome his tragedies were generally popular. Scenes from Electra were even read at Julius Caesar's funeral. The value of Sophocles' work have been esteemed in classical education and Western culture since. Many modern audiences have admired his lyrical writing, irony, and use of female characters, especially Antigone as she stands up against the tyrant king. Many of his stories have been adapted to films and other forms of media, or the originals performed in their entirety. Sophocles' legacy has not been insignificant. He's remembered today as a Greek citizen engaged in Athenian politics, who, with other pioneers, contributed to the overall spread of theater, as well as establishing Western theater in general, surviving till today as we now know it.